If not, then like, who cares? And I think part of having these bad bonus structures, incentivizing bad behavior around backward-looking metrics, is incentivizing people to chase targets that don't do what the shareholders want, which is drive value. So at the end of the day, I'm saying, like, how do we change the structure of performance? Focus on outcome-based metrics like forecasted revenue, forecasted profitability, and how much marketing is actually impacting those things in the short, medium, and long term.
Bradley Keefer is the guy your CMO should probably fear, and your CFO already loves. He's the Chief Revenue Officer at Keen Decision Systems, wrangling over $7.5 billion in marketing budgets while casually dismantling your favorite buzzwords: ROAS, garbage; brand love, cute. He's here to replace your dashboards with actual forecasting, and maybe your job with an AI agent that doesn't need coffee breaks.
Multi-billion-dollar complex federal court litigation. We do it day in, day out. And we've built a team dedicated to doing nothing but keeping you safe in the most dangerous litigation in the world. We're comfortable where everybody else is horribly uncomfortable.
And with the litigation piece, we bring the compliance piece, right? That's what I'm adding. That's what my entire team is adding. We've built TCPA World only for you folks to help you folks out.
Welcome back to the ADOTAT Show. I'm your host, Pesach Lattin. I am today with Bradley Keefer. He is the CRO at Keen, where he manages $7.5 billion. That's billion with a big B in marketing budgets, and scaled multiple SaaS companies, and believes the industry is in the midst of a major shakeup where legacy agencies are about to get bulldozed by AI and new tech. His company, Keen, is all about measurement, forecasting, and helping indie agencies punch above their weight. Bradley, let's start easy. How are you? And I mean really, not the LinkedIn hustle and grind version. More coffee than sleep, more emails than oxygen, or are you actually living the dream?
I'm pretty excited every day. I show up to work and we're really disrupting the space. We're really disrupting the way marketing is done. We're disrupting industries. So I'm excited, but I'm also pretty tired because, we're fast moving, software company. So there's always more to be done. And, that's just part of my mentality as well. So I'd be lying if I didn't say I was tired as well.
So Bradley is the Chief Revenue Officer at Keen, where he manages $7.5 billion with a B in marketing budgets, and has scaled multiple SaaS companies, and believes the industry is in the midst of a major shakeup where legacy agencies are about to get bulldozed by AI new tools. His company, Keen, is all about measurement, forecast, and helping any agencies punch above their weight. So the first thing is, you've said that half of the standard ROAS measurements out there are garbage. Is this one of those everything's whispering at the bar but won't say in the boardroom moments? So what's the metric that matters then?
Yeah, I'd say, so what you have is you have marketers who love ROAS, and iROAS is their new version of it, and the incremental ROAS, and they're all excited about that metric. But then you've got CFOs who are looking at that iROAS metric and the ROAS metrics and saying, yeah, but how is this driving profitability and long-term shareholder value? So, I think at one side, you have folks who are like, look at these KPIs, look at this shiny new metric that I have to share that rationalizes how amazing I am at my job. And the CFO who says, I'm going to cut your budget because I'm not seeing the efficiency that I need and it's not profitable. The term that we recommend is for folks to think about marketing as an investment through time. So therefore, net present value is the key metric, because net present value takes into consideration long-term compounding impact, as well as the top line growth and the bottom line cost. So net present value is essentially your incremental profit that you're driving over a long time period.
Can you give me an example of a massive brand script that relied on the raw metrics? Something so bad that you had to grab popcorn and watch the train wreck unfold. And if you, don't have to name names, but if you do, I won't bleep it though.
Yeah, you're good. We work with a subscription-based beauty company, and one of the things that we saw with them is they were so focused on performance marketing and all the metrics that come with performance marketing. And what ended up happening was they, spent this way, and it's like, hey, top line revenue is okay. They were going up a little bit, then it started to flatline. And then all of a sudden their profitability started to erode. And when I started to, run the models in our system, what we found is that that growth that's stalling is not tied to any other metric other than the fact that their base was actually eroding. And their base was eroding because they weren't building a brand. And I know performance marketers always show up and try to justify that performance marketing is building a brand, and I don't disagree with them. But I think if you don't have an intentional strategy around building a long-term sustainable brand with heavy top of the funnel balanced with that middle and bottom of the funnel, what ends up happening time and time again, and this is like plaguing the D2C industry right now as a whole, which is chasing ROAS, chasing performance marketing, shiny metrics, is bleeding in the profitability of these companies. And then all the marketers show up crying and whining because the CFO cut their budget again. And it's like, well, yeah, because you're not effective and you're not efficient at the way at which you're building a brand through time.
How much of this is people not trusting the data over their delusions?
Yeah, I think part of it is that folks are so scared every day when they show up because they read the headlines. CMOs are getting cut. They've got the shortest tenure, right? So every CMO enters the new job saying, I've got 1 year to prove why the last guy was not good and 1 year to tell everybody why I'm going to be amazing. And then people catch up to the fact that you're doing the same stuff as the last guy in the third year, and then they end up leaving. Right? And then you've got other junior level marketers who get cut. You've got marketing as the first budget line item that gets cut. So people are just generally fearful in marketing right now is what we find. And part of it is like, I'm just looking for any metric that shows that I actually am important to the business and that marketing is important to the business. And I think that's part of what is leading people to just chase the wrong metrics.
If last touch attribution worked, your waiter would take full credit for your meal. We make sure the chef gets credit too. Incremental.
Right. So if you were given an absolute power to delete one common marketing buzzword from existence and we would never speak it to at conferences again, what would it be?
Yeah, besides ROAS, I would actually reply to that with like reach frequency. Like, I know that's 2 words, but reach and frequency is one of those metrics that for me, that's great. But like, does reach frequency always have a causal relationship back to revenue? Or is that just another one of those like, I'm going to go chase this metric because if I just have the right reach and the right frequency, therefore I'll get the right revenue. How do you know? It's like brands who are obsessed with brand love and all that kind of stuff.
So let's just say you wake up as the new CMO of a massive holding company. Congrats, you're in charge of the Titanic. What is your first move? Is it to set it on fire for the insurance, to rebrand everything AI, C, to lay off everyone 40 and up and hire 20-year-olds that pretend to know TikTok? Or is there some secret number D, or letter D, that is, that none of us are smart enough to see?
Yeah, I think it'd be more D, because I think part of it is it's not the education, it's not the people, it's not the way at which we're executing. There's no magic creative that's out there that unlocks all the viral moments. For me, it's around the mindset. Like, we have the wrong KPIs, right? Brands and people are bonused and people within these brands have KPIs around ROAS. They have KPIs around ROAS and ROI, right? The bigger thing that we should be focusing on is marketing driving incremental long-term shareholder value? If not, then who cares? And I think part of having these bad bonus structures, incentivizing bad behavior around backward-looking metrics, is incentivizing people to chase targets that don't do what the shareholders want, which is drive value. So at the end of the day, I'm saying, how do we change the structure of performance? Focus on outcome-based metrics like forecasted revenue, forecasted profitability, and how much marketing is actually impacting those things in the short, medium, and long term.
So in 3 years, do you think the legacy holding companies will be here, or the indie agencies will eat their lunch?
Well, I think this question is relevant, coming off of yesterday when someone announced that they were laying off 4% of their business, and then you've got, stocks plummeting for some of these large holdcos, and you've got them making these big grand announcements around their AI capabilities that are out there that are going to connect all their cobbled together softwares that they've acquired through time. So you do see the holdcos starting to panic. If you know what to look for in the business world, they are definitely panicking. They're pivoting, they're reimagining, they're redefining who they are. But I think at the end of the day, it's they're not going to be able to keep up with the speed and agility of a true tech-enabled agency that is emerging. So is it even the large indies that thrive through this? I'm even challenged there. I think the biggest disruption is going to be your 5 to 10 person indie shops that pop up that are tech first or tech enabled, utilizing a tool like Keen that's connected to this interoperable message, that is connected to this headless MarTech message. Because one, I'm going to help enable, from Keen's perspective, these smaller indies to go in with massive margin opportunity or massive margin advantages. At the same time, I'm also going to allow them to focus on outcomes rather than focus on historic performance. So in this case, I think you're going to see the shift in how agencies are actually paid. Agencies should be paid to drive 12% growth rather than, what was the ROI in this, this metric over here? Because I think what that's going to do is, one, a tech-enabled agency is going to remove the BS inventory that is hidden right now in the fact that when I go ask a lot of these large agencies to send me time series data, it's like landing a rocket on Mars. Why? Because they've got hidden fees logged in there. They don't want you to see the garbage inventory that they buried into their buys in order to gain new margin, right? Technology and automated data flow creates transparency. Systems like Keen.
When you say headless MarTech, what are we talking about? Is this something revolutionary or just another shiny object?
No, honestly, I think that's where we're headed. And one of the ways you think about this is think about AI agents. AI agents exist today and will continue to evolve. We're in the early stages of them, and they're already doing a great job at identifying keywords that we should go search for, flagging things when they're off, flagging bids that are above certain metrics. So a lot of the stuff we have lower level or early in career analysts doing, just crunching numbers, finding things, going to discover, a lot of that's being replaced by AI agent now in tech-enabled world. And then you go upstream a little bit further from that, and a lot of the buying plans that are being developed right now are being developed with software applications like Keen. So if you think about it, I'm actually automating the data collection from 100% of the working dollars. I'm normalizing that data using AI. I'm producing a marketing mix model from a measurement scorecard perspective. I'm validating that with MTA and incrementality to therefore then produce a media buying plan with a forecast that is typically out forecasting a CFO. My media plan feeds into the programmatic bidding platforms and then creates this closed loop system. So you're not that far away from a tool like Keen integrating with a bunch of the partners that we already have in our marketplace run by AI agent, where a CFO can actually start the conversation and say, I am a food and beverage brand that is a $100 million brand with the objective of growing 20% over the next year, and my budget is X. I believe this about the category and this about inflation. Click go, right? And the system then automatically builds the plan and then executes it in these programmatic bidding platforms. The technology is almost there to be able to do that. And we see it emerging, more and more every day as we connect to our partners. And it's we're 6 to 12 months away from the ability for someone to prompt it to then go and do the thing. Well, where are the people in that, right? It's all tech enabled. So therefore it's a headless MarTech.
What's the one thing that humans still do better than technology though?
Yeah, they add the human intuition on top, right? So there's the human intelligence, the human instinct that you add on top of it. This is where especially over the next 1 to 3 years, is AI really good at reasoning? Sure. But it also spits out the first most logical answer it finds. It doesn't mean it's the best, most logical answer for your brand. So where humans come into play is in that headless MarTech stack. Humans are basically the guardrails, right? They're the ones who start the prompt. They're the ones who make sure it stays on track. They're the ones who make sure that the brand is protected in the way that it's executing, where it's executing, how it's executing. So really, it's they're the guardrails from a legal perspective, from an execution brand protection perspective. And they're also the ones who are saying, I see why the tool said that's a good move, but there's this other thing over here. That's where the humans really still come into play.
So if AI is running marketing decisions, should we even bother with the CMO anymore? Do we just need an AI whisperer and a budget approver?
I mean, it's a big question that we see that's actually starting to play out now. Right? Where I think part of the reason that the tenure of CMOs is so low is because the CFOs really, at the end of the day, control the budgets and control the reporting of the performance. So maybe a CMO becomes a chief creative officer, or the CMO profile changes where it's more of a data-based, commercial-based person, where sales marketing is actually more of the same type of thing. And you're seeing that evolve today in the market. We're already seeing those movements. We're already seeing that shift. So is a CMO exist in its current form? No. Does the role of a CMO shift through time? Maybe. And therefore, maybe we don't even need a CMO. Maybe we just need, a commercial person or someone who sits within finance. Because at the end of the day, marketing is just an investment, and an investment that is made in programmatic ways, an investment that is made through time. So why don't we let the finance and investment folks play the investment? Well, there's the creative angle, right? So can AI do creative? That's the big question right now, is how well will generative AI actually do in this space? That's still TBD at this point.
So let's pretend in the future there's a brand new AI marketing overlord that's in charge, and it runs every campaign, picks every creative, and even optimizes the influencer drama cycle. What does that world look like to you?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because who ends up, I think one of the questions in this, and I'd follow up your question with a question, which is who actually has the most power in this dynamic? Is it the brand? Is it the marketer? Or is it the platform where the execution happens? Even
I
in
was just
that,
wondering
I'm like,
if we should be bowing down or fighting back at this point.
yeah, I think, well, at the end of the day, it's like, it has to be wherever the transaction happens. Like, I think that's where this ends up playing out, right? Is who has the control here? Like, because even the folks who are like, well, is it Meta? Is it Google? I mean, look at all the stuff that's happening with Google right now with like, yeah, they launched their open source MMM, but they're also like, being forced to sell off Chrome possibly. And like, well, do they actually have power, or is it guys like Amazon who actually have that point of conversion, or that where that transaction happens? So at the end of the day, it's like, who has the most power in this? Who do we bow down to? It's like, wherever the transaction happens, I believe, is where the most value is going to live, because they'll have access to what actually converted, what actually worked. Because Meta can tell you what worked to get someone to click, but it doesn't mean they bought it. Right? So at the end of the day, it's like whoever can expose where that actual conversion happened is going to have more power in this dynamic, in my opinion, over the next 1 to 3 years.
So I want to move on and talk about scaling a business without losing your soul. You've personally built teams, scaled revenue, and navigated the shark-infested waters of adtech marketing and SaaS. So what's the secret to growing without burning out, selling out, or just tapping out entirely?
Yeah, one, I think it's a mindset to be prepared. I always follow Angela Duckworth's grit mentality. So the team that I hire always has to take a grit score, because MarTech and adtech is painful. Like you just have to be ready for that. There's huge upside, right? There's huge empowerment that you can give to people who are executing and building brands from nothing. So for me, it's around like finding people who are just genuinely curious and ready to grind, and not from a perspective of like gross, unhealthy work-life balances. I mean, even Keen, we work under a thing called conscious culture, where we only work Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday. We have Fridays off every week. And that's crazy in this fast-paced, moving environment, because for us, people show up more creative on Monday because of the fact that they had Friday to recover. Because, most of the people that work here have young kids, and I have young kids, and it's like, I haven't had a weekend to myself to do anything, because I'm going to soccer games and I'm going to all these sporting events, and then I've got to go entertain them here and there. It's like, I just need a day to like cut the grass, man. So for me, it's about, how do you build the right culture within an organization that allows people to find work-life balance, but also find the people that when they show up, in our case, Monday through Thursday, they're ready to crank and grind and be inspired by the fact that we're building brands that people consume every day.
So everyone says hire great people and then just get out of the way. That really sounds cute, but what does it actually mean in practice? How do you let people take ownership without descending into chaos?
Yeah, I think it's being able to like let people fail fast, right? Is creating a culture where failure is okay, but failure and fail fast. Again, I'm going to throw a cliche phrase out and
Is that part of the problem with startups? Is they break everything, usually very fast?
I think part of the problem with startups is they go after a point solution and then keep adding more points and then try to figure out how the points all come together. The thing that I've seen that's been successful, like in my career personally, is the ability to say, what is the North Star that we're going toward? And it's not the, hey, what's the end feature set of our product? It is what am I truly doing to change someone's life, to empower someone to be better at their job? Because at the end of the day, it's about like a marketer shows up who truly wants to, be able to do well at their job, to be able to put food on their table. Well, how do I get that person to look good in their career? How do I get that person to retain their job? So I'm actually trying to solve a human problem with technology. So how do I marry them to be empowered, rather than, I think a lot of startups start with like, all right, I have this problem in the industry. Let's go build this point solution and then build ourselves into more and more features. And eventually you're going to get to the point where it's like, I now have 10 competitors who all have the same features. And now we're just in a feature benefit battle, because you've lost sight of the human on the other side who needs to be empowered by the solution that you're actually building. So that's where I think a lot of startups fail, is losing sight of the people who are the buyers and the users of your tool.
So what's the most painful lesson you learned in scaling a team?
Yeah, I think the most painful thing for me is really like, finding the people that have grit, finding the people who are willing to be curious, and then realizing that like, they weren't there. They don't have it, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm seeing kind of transpire or like play out here over the last 5 years or so coming out of COVID, is people want a place where they can show up and actually be empowered themselves and empower other people with their solution. And where I've been burned is when you hire the people who talk a big game and then don't deliver. So it's really like in that fail fast mentality, it's like, finding the wrong people who come in and just distract you, who throw off your culture, who throw off what you're trying to do. It's like, I know these things sound cliche, but like it really does become poison in the well very quickly if you allow those people to stick around too long. And the problem in startup is, if I keep hiring those people, I always have poison. If I turn those people too fast, I create an environment where everybody feels like you're just cutting for the sake of cutting. And then it's like, but if I keep them in there too long, then they just like, they're not helping me. So it's like, when's the right time to make that decision when you've identified that that person interviewed well and they're actually poisoning the well, or they don't have the purity and the grit that you thought they did. But at the same time, you then play this out. I need solid B players as well as A players, right? So not everybody's going to be a dreamer. Not everybody's going to be, I just need people who are going to show up and click the buttons. Well, when's the right time to build the bench of B players? And it's not a knock at them. There's just some people who are like, hey, I just want to show up and do above average, really good work, but I'm not willing to dream and push that dream forward. That's okay.
Right.
Well, when's the right time there?
Do they sit at the same table at lunch?
Well, I mean, we're all remote, so nobody sits at the same table. Yeah. But yeah, so like in the old time,
I don't remember who this was, but one of the people I interviewed recently, I don't think we have the interview out, pointed out that they found it was easier to find out who the slackers were remotely than in the office. Because in the office, they'd show up and you figure it takes them about a month to figure out how to do things. And then they could actually sit there for a month and pretend to work. But when they were remote, you found out within a week they weren't working.
Yeah, it's tricky because the only way that they can find that out, one, is if they don't show up. But two is if you're one of those weird companies that has computer monitoring that watches like how many Slacks someone sends and how many emails someone sent. Like, if you're building a culture like that, it's a toxic culture anyway, because that means you've hired people that you don't trust. And I know there's going to be people who will post comments on here and post about like, yeah, but like at some point you got to protect your own company. It's like, yeah, but at some point you got to empower and trust the people you hire. Like if your hiring is that awful that you have people that you have to monitor their computers, that's crazy to me, right? So like, how do you find that right balance? Because to your point, this is even part of the poisoning the well. Sometimes those people are poisoning the well by just not working. Well, it's having the right KPIs. Like, so for us, it's around everybody has very clear defined OKRs that ladder up to the team OKRs, that ladder up to the division OKRs, that ladder up to the corporate OKRs. So for us, it's not OKRs for the purpose of like, micromanagement. It's OKRs that say, hey man, you've got a paddle, you're sitting in the boat. I'm telling you where we're going in the map, and we're all sitting in the boat and we're all rowing together, right? And I think there's a lot of ivory tower leaders out there who are like, I'll see you on the island. I've got a power boat. Go grab a paddle. So that culture in and of itself sucks. But then there's this like, well, why don't we all row together, right? I still show up on sales pitches, managing the size business that we have. I'm on sales pitches. I meet with almost all of our clients at least once a quarter. Why? Because it's like, you got to grab a paddle too. And if you're not grabbing a paddle, then you can't identify who's actually grabbing a paddle or who's just really bad at rowing.
If I give you a magic undo button and you could roll back one major decision from your career, something you really regret, something that still keeps you up at night, what would you press it for?
Yeah, not pushing hard enough for more marketing investment early, which is ironic for a marketing optimization tool in and of itself. But it's this idea of like building, for Keen or just like anywhere I've been.
Or in general.
There's always this pressure around like, especially in the startup world, like how do I have confidence in the marketing that I'm spending, right? And it's really easy to fall into the same trap that I'm talking that brands are falling into. So like, I don't fault them. I see it in B2B SaaS, and I've seen it my entire career until I came to Keen, where it's like, oh, this is sweet. As a CRO of a B2B company, I actually have a tool that tells me what marketing's working. And it's beyond just like the attribution that shows up in Salesforce and HubSpot, which by the way is not good, not good attribution. But for me, it's like not building the right business case fast enough to get the big enough marketing budget to go be famous, right? And not me be famous, but the company be famous, right? Because conversion rates are much better if you're just more famous. And the way you become more famous is that you have a position, you have a perspective, you have data that supports your perspective, and you have the dollars to be able to go tell the world about all of those things. So I've been too light on playing I'll step into marketing, where now learning at Keen, it's like, go grab a bunch of dollars, go tell the world who you are. And then from there, it allows that trickle down effect of conversion to actually make an impact. But you have to be willing to spend ahead of the performance.
So one thing I've noticed about ad tech is history obviously repeats itself, and ad tech and MarTech often recycle the same problems with new acronyms. What do you think the biggest scam right now is that's being passed off as revolutionary?
Multitouch attribution, because it's like you get folks who are out there who are like, hey, I'm tracking 30% of my buyers online, and I'm able to then say, like, I know what's working, right? And like last click is even worse, but like the fact that people are still using last click attribution is insane to me. At least go to multi-touch attribution, but then the problem from there is like, I have 30% coverage of all these people, and I can therefore go make 100% of my budget decisions based off of that 30%. Like, that's nuts to me, right? And it's like, why are you doing it? It's like, well, because now I can track these people. I can see how long it took them to return. I can see this, and therefore I can infer that, like, then we should do this. That's crazy to me. Like, think about playing that out. It's like you're making 100% based decision off of 30% visibility. And it's like, well, that's the best thing that I have. And it's like, is it? Or do you just not looking at the right tool?
So what's the right tool?
I think, Keen, I'm going to be biased. It's like the fact that I look at 100% of your working dollars and I can show you how it impacts 100% of your budget, and I can forecast it within a 4% margin of error is like, I'm not only proving that marketing is working, I'm proving how marketing is interacting with the environment, and I'm able to show that marketing can be predictable. And I'm therefore out forecasting most CFOs, right? So I'm biased in that tool, but like the industry is validating it for us every day of like, this is the thing we've all been looking for because it allows me to see it. And like, honestly, like when I'm on first sales calls, people are like, our biggest challenge as Keen is people hear it and they're like, this is the unicorn thing we've been looking for, but here's the problem. It sounds like a unicorn. There's got to be a catch. There's no way it works. And it's like the biggest hurdle that we have to get over in the sales process on our side is like, no, it actually works. Like, send me some of your data. I'll build you a free model. And then people are like, holy crap, this thing works, right? So the biggest challenge that we have is like, and the industry has is, well, marketing mix is like these other things over here. It's like, that's a PowerPoint deck that I paid $300,000 for that like is 18-month-old data. And it's like, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, this is not your grandmother's, marketing mix. Like, this is a much faster, more holistic, future-looking solution. I only call myself marketing mix on my side because it's like, that's the budget that I'm stealing away from the traditional legacy consultant guys. But at the end of the day, I'm actually a commercial planning solution for 100% of those budget, right? And think about that from any of your perspective. Like, if you're a CRO or a CMO who's trusted with a budget, I want to be able to know that every dollar I'm spending is working as hard as it possibly can and be able to prove that it is. So therefore I can get more to raise the bar even more. So again, I'm super biased in this, obviously, but a lot of people are buying up MTA, especially in the D2C world, which is crazy to me.
So what is the most absurd innovation pitch that you've ever heard? Something so ridiculous you thought it was a satire?
Yeah, there was a company the other day that'll remain nameless that just got unicorn valuation. And if you look at their website, it's like, then you double click into what they pitched, and it's like, we're going to be the AI execution that does all the personalization for everybody and every dollar that we spend, and I'm going to support it with the content creation. It's like, guys, we spend every day in AI, like the AI is not there yet. So the fact that someone got $1 billion valuation off of not that large of a company, promising that like the AI content creation, the AI execution, all that, like that it's there today is nuts to me. Like, and you see a lot of that right now. There's a ton of dollars that are flying around out in California around like these companies that are coming out that are like, and we're going to solve all this. And it's like, then the challenge there is like, well, didn't you just say earlier in the podcast that that's what you guys are looking for? It's like, yeah, for sure. That's what we're building toward. But the technology doesn't exist today. So the fact
and right now it's just interns with spreadsheets.
It's crazy, right? And then it's like, and now all of a sudden you get people who are like, yeah, and then I'm going to create all kinds of personalized content that'll like show Brad wearing the special backpack that I'm trying to sell, like in the woods hiking with his family. One, that's creepy. Like I wouldn't buy from someone who's like over personalized. And I just created an AI image and the guy had 6 fingers. So I don't think like, that's not going to work. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, people are selling this big vision. I get it, but the tech's not there. Is it coming? For sure. Kudos to them for a heck of a sales pitch, but I don't know. There's going to be a lot of investors who are saddened by the fact that doesn't become realized, over the next 5 years at the level at which they've been promised. So we'll see.
So what's the biggest unsolved problem in adtech or MarTech that no one wants to touch?
Yeah, I think it's honestly on the buying side. How do I connect overall like 100% of my marketing budget to the actual programmatic buying. Because, in the digital space, you have a lot of like digital dollars that are executed programmatically, that are executed with like automated bidding. But then you've got a lot of these weird like influencer marketplaces that are like not great. And then you've got like horrible reports in PR and people still spending a lot there. And then I've got this super weird currency that exists still in linear TV that's like, and then the best I can give you is a 7-month, or a 6-month lag time in like reporting this on a spreadsheet. Like there's just a lot of like legacy bad buying that exists out there and bad reporting mechanisms that exist. So, I think right now it's like being able to connect 100% of your working dollars to automated bidding and buying is a pretty big gap right now that exists that I'd love to see, some innovation happen in those legacy channels because they are important to a marketing mix, but there's just so many bad players that exist there that kind of cloud the excitement.
So what innovative thing actually excites you?
I think the fact that like we're like on the verge, again, I'll be biased toward Keen because, we've been validating it with all the external strategic conversations that we're having is like the fact that we're even talking about replacing all of the people costs that are killing the margin of the agency ad business today. The fact that we can enable that to allow a 500-person agency to double the capacity that they can execute is exciting to me. So the fact that like I can have people who show up to make smarter, better, more economic decisions. There's less wasteful spend in advertising. There's less wasteful spend for brands that are out there. If we get to this point where we have an ability to actually run this interoperable headless MarTech stack that I'm talking about, it just removes waste, which is always exciting for me personally.
Okay, so now for my favorite part where I get to strand you on a desert island. You don't have Slack dashboards, no Excel reports. You're just there for survival. Who are you bringing? What are you doing? And how long before you start trying to sell ad spaces on coconut shells?
Yeah, I mean, like, well, if there's nothing to buy, there's no point in making revenue, right? But if there's things to buy there, for sure, getting the dollars out of place. But yeah, but who am I selling it to? If it's just me, am I just selling it to the 2 people I'm bringing?
Well, you have 5 other people that you bought.
Oh man,
it's very circular, small economy.
Yeah. My wife would be mad if she listens to this podcast and I say I'm not bringing her, but I'm a big family guy, so I bring my wife and kids. So there's 3 people right there for you. Because, I like to have fun with my kids. We like to do stuff. We like to go exploring. So it's a perfect place for us to go. In fact, we're looking at our next vacation, which is an island where we can go exploring. So bring those guys along. And then, I don't know, maybe I'll keep bringing, if I want to do business stuff, bring Angela Duckworth along to be able to do some of this grit work that we're talking about because, that excites me. And then, someone's going to come that does some cool thing with AI because I'm really curious about how AI is going to disrupt the workforce. So I do a lot of work in AI on like our technology and the tool and stuff like that. But the biggest curiosity that I have is really around what do the humans do, right? So sort of one of the questions you asked before. So I'm going to bring someone along who is really willing to kind of thought leader with me on how AI disrupts the workforce in the future.
So who's getting voted off first?
Don't tell my daughter, but probably her, because I'm sure she's going to have some kind of like snarky thing to say, or she's going to call me cringe or something like that. So there's only so many times.
She's a teen? Or yeah.
No, she's a preteen, even better.
It gets worse.
Yeah. So, but it's good.
Yeah, I have two adult daughters. I promise you, it gets much worse.
Yeah, no, all good. I'm looking forward to it because she and I get in some pretty good like debates now, and I can't wait till there's more intellect behind her debate other than my iPad's out of time and I'm still talking to my friends on FaceTime. And it's like, well, you only get so much time.
You're going to be building a civilization from scratch. What is your first law?
If I'm building a what?
So you're going to be building this civilization from scratch on an island. What is your first law?
Yeah. Oh, man. Good question. I think it's going to be really around. What's that?
No PowerPoint?
No PowerPoints? No, I think I'm more interested in like, finding how we define civility, right? Because, I guess this could just be the temporary pain that we all live in this country today of just like chaos. Like, I'm really interested in how the human connection can actually be important. So how do we as humans like empower each other? How do we as humans actually do things together? So how do we create enough civility where we can work together even with differing views? So I guess I'm just burnt out in my personal life by the chaos of I'm going to turn on the news or scroll social media and see the latest, whatever chaotic thing is happening in the world today. Just looking for some kind of civility and humanness together. So focus on that.
So
I guess that's too mushy of an answer, but it's what's important.
A rescue boat shows up, but it's actually a VC firm. Let's just put Terry Kawaja or something on it. They'll only take you back if you pitch them a startup idea. and you can only use things on the island, what is your pitch?
Whew. I mean, it's got to be something with coconut shells, right? Because they're going to be everywhere according to the things that I'm selling before. I don't know. I mean, if we're on a desert island, depends on who else is available, right? I don't think I have anything good for this one right now. My mind is just too deep in ad tech. I don't want to say like more ad tech stuff, right? Because that's where like I'm just so embedded into that right now that it's hard for me to think beyond that in the innovation side.
Well, obviously you don't get rescued and you become ruler of the island. What is the state of your new society? Is it a thriving utopia where everyone works 4-day weeks? A brutal dictatorship where you control the coconuts? Or do you immediately burn down the island's ecosystem trying to build a Wi-Fi tower?
No, I think it's definitely closer to the first one, right? Where it's like, how do we just work together? How do we empower each other? How do we do really cool stuff together?
Is that realistic though with your family? Are you guys really that kumbaya?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're aspirational. I mean, this is like an Instagram thing, right? Like I got a post on Instagram that like, look how amazing my family is. It never melts down. It's great. No, honestly, like, yeah, I think so. For my immediate family, like we do cool stuff together. We go on adventures together. We try to empower each other in what we do. It's, it's really important to who we are as a family. So I'd say, yeah, I mean, it is possible. But, if I brought the AI guy and the grit people, maybe we'll push them too hard and they'll start to revolt back against my willingness or my desire for them to all thrive together. Who knows? Maybe my kids become the ones who revolt rather than the need for me to become a dictator, I guess. I don't know.
So let's get into really who you are. What's the one thing you wish people understood about you beyond your career?
Yeah, I think, I've kind of shared a lot of it here, which is that, for me, it's about how do we just be better humans? And what does that actually mean? It's like, how do we just lift each other up? At the end of the day, like that's important to me. There's so much fighting that happens today, whether it's, I attend my local school board meetings because I'm passionate about my kids' future and my kids' education, and they're just fighting and bickering over stuff. And then you turn on the news and people are fighting and bickering over stuff and acting like children. And then you go to, the extended family Thanksgiving dinner, that kind of thing. And it's like, people are just bickering over stuff. It's like, who cares? Like, none of this stuff matters. Like, how do we just lift each other up? Like, what are we doing as a society when we're all just trying to say like, well, here's my flex and how I'm better than you and how you're better than me. And it's just like, it's exhausting. And I think we're all feeling that right now. And it's like, well, there is a better way. We could just be like nice to each other. We could just be humans and like lift each other up. So, that often doesn't come out, and especially when you're in a VC-backed company or you're trying to like hit a number on a spreadsheet and all that stuff. I think oftentimes I'm focused so much on grinding and moving forward that the humanness doesn't show up as much as I want it to. But it is super important to me.
Right. So you also said your superpower would be change management. What about driving change excites you instead of making you want to throw a laptop out a window?
Yeah, I think it goes back to like the need for change management is because so many folks show up today fearful of getting cut from their job. Like, and it's like, why does that exist? And it's like, well, because of the fact that like, we're not good at telling stories with the data we have. We're not clear on the vision and the way at which we show up. We also have people who are like just underperforming, right? So I'd love change management to really be about how do we just empower each other, right? So again, that's the theme here, I guess, which is also part of the reason why maybe that's one of our core themes here at Keen is how do we empower people to just make better, smarter, faster decisions? So change management is being able to like be vulnerable enough to say, I actually don't know what I'm doing. Because I think there's a lot of marketers today that are throwing out these vanity metrics because it's like, I'm trying to rationalize my job and all that stuff. But what they're actually fearful of is saying, I actually don't know what I'm doing. The world's moving so fast. Channel proliferation is real. There's decisions everywhere. And like, the reality is like, I'll give you a clue. The guy next to you has no idea what he's doing either. We're all just trying to do the best that we can every day through the lens at which we can see the world. And, for me, it's like, how do we be vulnerable enough to drive the change? And part of the change management that's needed, in my opinion, is we're so focused on this, like, let's grow the bottom line as much as we possibly can for the shareholder, which is great in the business world. But does it actually matter from a human perspective? Like, are we going to be okay if we only had 20% growth? It's like, we only need 35% growth because the VC told us. Well, he's just trying to get paid too, right? Like, why don't we slow down a little bit and actually just build a sustainable, scalable society? But I guess I'm not greedy enough to say like, no, we need to do everything tomorrow and it needs to be massive and at the risk of everybody else. So I guess I'm a little too kumbaya in that regard.
So you worked in multiple industries. What's the one constant you've seen in every industry, no matter what?
The biggest thing that I've seen across any of these industries is the fact that people aren't always willing to be vulnerable in their jobs and be human in their jobs, right? Everybody's just trying to be a part of the machine, right? We're on the rat race or whatever cliche term you want to use, trying to climb the corporate ladder. And it's like, yeah, but along the way, like, you just see people like stabbing each other in the back and like trying to play politic and stuff like that. It's like, who cares, man? Like, let's just show up, do the best we can. You know, we're all here. We all have a job to do. There's a role for all of us in this world. So, yeah, I think the one thing that's consistent is like, we're just moving too fast. Focus on, you know, the capital gains rather than focusing on just like the human empowerment that could be possible.
So if you go back and give 22-year-old Bradley one piece of advice, what would it be? And would you even listen to yourself?
Yeah, I think part of the reason that my message is as consistent as it is on the human side is because I got caught up in that wheel, right? Where it's like,
Right.
I did the thing, right? So like most millennial guys or, you know, like men, you know, that are out there, because I listen to a lot of like podcasts and a lot of like, you know, just like be better kind of, you know, podcasts and stories and read a lot of books on that stuff. But for me, it's like, there's so many guys in American culture, work culture today that get burnt out, who are terrible dads because they can't find work-life balance, who, you know, get burnt out because it's like, I'm just got to get to the top. And then they get there and they go, oh, well, shit, this kind of sucks. Or like, man, this isn't as good as I thought it would be. Or like, this doesn't feel like I thought it would feel. And it's like, right, because you're focused on the wrong thing. Right? And who did you cut along the way? Who did you blow past along the way that like, you know, you got to lift them back up. So I think it's just like slowing down and realizing that like, you know, keep the main thing the main thing. You'll get there when you get there kind of thing, rather than like, I don't know, the society told me that I'm supposed to be on this like path up here and I made it. And it's like, this is it. So
you just won $1 billion. You don't have to work anymore. What's the first ridiculous thing you would do?
I think for me, it's, you know, just finding stability for my kids in the future. Again, that's super boring answer. I'm not going to say I'm going to go buy a private jet or a private island. Like that stuff doesn't excite me. But for me, it's really around.
You had the island for free, so don't worry.
Well, then in that case, I'm good. But I think there's a lot of work that could be done to, you know, from a homelessness perspective. And again, this sounds so cliche, but it's like, it really does matter to me, where I see, you know, these billionaires who are out there, they're like, well, I donated $1 million to these homeless efforts. And it's like, right. And then you went home to your like $50 million mansion. Like, I feel like you'd be okay with a $30 million mansion and like, I don't know, maybe getting a house for some of these guys. So I think that's important to me and what I'd really look at if I inherited $1 billion tomorrow.
All right. Final question. What is the one marketing hill you'll die on?
Marketing is about building a brand, and a brand is about building long-term value. If we're not focused on that, then we're focused on the wrong things, right? Backwards doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters is what your marketing does in the future. And in the future is not going to look the same as it did in the past. So why are we focused so much on the metric of the past and assuming that it'll inform what the future performance looks like? I'm going to die on that hill, because I think marketing is so forward-looking, and the world needs to be more forward-looking than backward-looking. My marketing last year performed this way because inflation did that. Well, if inflation doesn't do that, then who cares what your marketing did last year? It's a different environment. So marketing is a future-building thing, not a backward performance thing.
Okay, so now the hardest part is where we get you to dance.
Oh boy. This is where Alex comes into play.
That was Bradley Keefer, CRO at Keen, slayer of vanity metrics, and the guy who just made half your agency deck obsolete. If you're still worshipping at the altar of Roas, it might be time to upgrade your religion, or at least your forecasting model. Big thanks to our sponsors Troutman Amin, the legal powerhouse for when things get messy, and Incremental, the platform that actually knows which half of your marketing works, so you can stop guessing and start growing. Stay bold, stay curious, and know more than you did yesterday.